on Serial Killers Unmasked, we're going to be discussing Jeffrey Dahmer, one of the most infamous serial killers of the 20th century. I gotta say, this guy creeps me out a little.
Wasn't he known for being a cannibal?
Yeah, his nickname is the Milwaukee Cannibal.
That's it? The Milwaukee Cannibal? I thought it was something more intense.
He's done some really weird things.
I think that's an understatement.
Yeah, a little bit. Before we discuss Dahmer's crimes, we will briefly touch on the causes of his actions. Neglected by his parents as a child, Dahmer started to isolate himself. This was due to each of his parents not investing enough time in him. He got lonely, and growing up, he obtained an interest in animals, specifically animal carcasses. He would collect animal carcasses from the road and dismember them, store them in jars, and claim that he wasn't interested in them. As a freshman in high school, he was completely an outcast and started excessively drinking, smuggling alcohol in school.
In the summer of 1978, Jeffrey Dahmer committed his first murder. At this time, Dahmer was living at home alone. On June 18th, a man by the name of Stephen Mark Hicks was hitchhiking to a nearby concert. He was picked up by Dahmer.
That's not smart. At all.
Don't hitchhike.
It's the 70s though.
Oh, true. Bringing him back to his house, they reportedly drank and listened to music together. After several hours, Dahmer admitted that Hicks wanted to leave, and Dahmer didn't want him to. As Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer strangled him to death.
He then dissected his body in the crawl space and then buried the remains in his backyard. Weeks later, he dug up the remains, parted the flesh from the bones, then crushing the bones with a sledgehammer. The remaining flesh was dumped into acid before flushing it down the toilet. Over time, he continued his immoral actions, which always resulted in murdering them. Most of the time, it was strangulation. One time in particular, after luring his victim into his home, he drugged him. Once the victim was unconscious, he poured hydrochloric acid into his victim's ear and attempted to zombify him. After a failed attempt, he then strangled him. Not only did Dahmer murder these young men, but some of their body parts he consumed.
Dahmer's last attempts of immorality and murder were put to an end after the victim, Tracy Edwards, punched Dahmer and ran out of his house. Edwards found two policemen and convinced them to follow him back to Dahmer's house, stating that Dahmer had handcuffed him and brought a knife up to him that he had kept in his bedroom. Arriving at Dahmer's residence, they searched his bedroom. They found Polaroid pictures of human bodies in different stages of dismemberment. Realizing the police had discovered his Polaroids, Dahmer fought to avoid being arrested.
During his arrest, he said, "For what I did, I deserve to be dead." After being arrested and thoroughly searching Dahmer's apartment, they found 7 skulls inside his closet and bedroom, 2 human hearts, arm muscle, human organs, severed hands, 2 skeletons, a mummified scalp, and dismembered torsos being soaked in acid solution. Dahmer was sentenced to 15 consecutive life sentences and diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, along with alcoholism, sexual disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and OCD with sadistic components. After spending 2 years in prison, a fellow inmate murdered Dahmer by beating him to death on November 28, 1994. What we discussed today is just the leading edge into the abominable actions of Jeffrey Dahmer.